All right, great. Okay, I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Hartford Select Board on Tuesday, August 6th, 2024 at 6 p.m. Our first item of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Would anyone like to lead us this evening?
Be happy to.
Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have no liquor control board business, but we do have cannabis control board business. So we'll end this portion of the select board meeting and reopen as the local cannabis control board. We have two renewal applications to attend to this evening. The first is a renewal for application S00008624, which is GMG Cannabis LLC. If there's someone here from GMG, I'd like to just tell us about the renewal and how things are going, that's fine.
We're Green Mountain Gourmet. We go by GMG Cannabis. We have created sort of more of a food pantry type of cannabis products. We have infused peanut butter, honeys, hot cocos, chocolate, coffees, lemonade mix, and some other products. We primarily came up with the idea to better serve those who need cannabis medically, who can't do products like gummies or chocolates because they're diabetic or pre-diabetic, and also those who couldn't smoke due to lung issues. And so we came up with things for people to be able to easily digest as everyday type of items that they normally use.
Any questions?
Could we have your name for the record?
My name's Scott Bunzey, B-U-N-Z-E-Y.
Okay. I will take a motion unless there's further questions.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the cannabis license with application number S-00008624-GMG Cannabis LLC.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Second from Mary. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you.
That brings us to our second renewal application, number S00008926. This is VVS Farms LLC. For someone from VVS Farm, you just
buy one, get one free today. My name is Jason Owens. My wife Tish Owens. She's the owner of VVS Labs. We operate as VVS Labs, owned as VVS Farms. Tier 1 cultivator in West Hartford. Currently deal exclusively with the Tea House and Depot Shop on Windsor, trying to stay local. Pretty small cultivator up in West Hartford.
Great. Any questions? No? Okay, I'll take a motion.
Sure. I move that the select board renew for application S00008926 VVS Farms LLC.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second from Kim. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thanks very much. Okay, we will close this time together as the local cannabis control board and reopen as the Hartford Select Board. Order of agenda, I don't see any changes to the order as listed. So we will go to public comment. We'll start with people in the room, then go to those who are joining us by Zoom. Please identify yourself if you have a comment and tell us your town or village of residence. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. That's down from 5, just to remind people it's 3 minutes now. We ask that you address the select board as a whole and refrain from personal attacks. So I see Dave has leapt up to the microphone, so you can kick it off.
Good evening. I'm David Briggs from White River Junction, and my report to you is a continuation of the updates having to do with what we can now call the Coolidge Block Project. This is a redevelopment of that site. And I'd like to read to you excerpts from my own internal update memo that the various people that have been collaborating with and helping me I send to. including the town manager as an outrun of my question to the planning commission earlier this winter when they said, work with the town manager. So as you know, that's what I'm gonna do. So I'd like to read this to you verbatim. And when my time is up, you can give me the hook. So this has to do with the all-important developer search, because as you know, I'm the would-be buyer of the seller of the property, and the town is a collaborator. I hope to establish serves to gain from that, but the all-important player is the developer, the private sector player. If I was going about this in a normal way or conventional way, I would just be listing the property to a realtor and we would take our chances with what came out of that. I'm trying to direct it in a certain way. So with no further ado here, the efforts to date reveal the challenge faced by private sector projects is commonly discussed as the gap, which is the difference in the cost of the project and the revenues that are required to result in a viable investment. The private sector, having no taxing authority, must produce a rate of return or profit to investor owners of the project is simply not sustainable and will not happen. The gap is commonly, if not always, filled by a number of typical concessions that are made by the public in the common interest for enjoying the benefits of the project, which are seen to be mutual. Those benefits are both broad and narrow. The broader benefits are those that cause a multiplier effect on the economy that come from the investment. The synergy of an improved site accrues to all its neighbors when properly conceived, designed, and managed. The most obvious examples are added commerce, civic pride, and opportunities for both employment and housing. In the case of the Coolidge Block project, the clear enticements to the town would be tax base enhancement, the economic development, and the civic pride in having the properties operating in a pleasing and safe manner. The enticements to the developer are a project that is welcomed and easier to gain permits. The developability of the site, which is key to this discussion, and the viability of the opening pro forma, all as opposed to the numerous other options developer have in the case of the regional economy. In other words, if they don't like what we bring, they can go someplace else. The pro forma is impacted by first costs and operating costs such as taxes, utilities, and insurance. The key to a project happening is the ability of the parties to optimize these factors so that both entities experience a win-win outcome. So I realize this is an economic development approach that I'm really talking about here. The Coolidge Block project now appears to be one that can be most effectively led by the town as an economic development initiative, which results in the following to the developer: a clean site, meaning the existing structure is demolished and disposed. Subsurface structures constructed by the town for municipal parking, the heating district infrastructure, and to serve as the foundation for the podium and upper floors of the privately developed and therefore taxable superstructure. And finally, permitting and approvals. The process of establishing a clean site and construction of the subsurface structures establishes more narrow and discernible permit requirements for the developer. The developer doesn't have to quite so severely sweat out the unknowns of the permitting process if we resolve those together. The Coolidge Block project has some impressive opportunities. The current owner is motivated to assist in the transition from the status quo to a project by keeping the current spaces in place until the redevelopment phase is completely ready to begin and to be executed efficiently. The town can engage as an economic development project that is not speculative, but on a site clearly understood to be an integral and vital part of the central business district that has already undergone substantial change both in private and public sector commitments over the decades. That said, however,
So I hate to cut you off.
we're at 3.
We're at 5.
We're at 5. We gave you a little extra.
Thank
Could
you for the
could
extra
you
too.
Email, if you have that statement, you can email it to the board. That would be helpful.
I'll give this to
Or give it to John.
Yeah.
if you get copies.
Since Lori's here and she helped us so magnificently with TIF, could I finish that one sentence that you
Okay.
got me?
And
That's
then
not
we'll-
what it says.
we got-
That said, however, the Coolidge Block project represents a clear opportunity to bring more discernible results as a but for the merger of the owner, the town, and the developer. But for the congregation of those three players, these things would not happen.
Thank you, Dave.
Dave, can I just ask you a question? And I think I've asked this more than once. At this stage, what are you looking for from the town? I mean, you present to us these ideas for the Coolidge building, and they have merit, but you really never specifically asked for us to give you, the select board it is, to give you anything as far as for buy-in, or what is it you would request of us?
Well, what I'm seeing right now is an economic development initiative. Is that ironically,
You're seeing that, but what are you asking? What are you
yeah,
asking?
well, I'm coming to that.
Okay.
What would happen is that I, or the organization I represent, would end up selling the Coolidge block to the town, who would redevelop the site so that a developer would be enticed to come in on that.
So you're asking us to buy the Coolidge property
That's the way it would work out.
at what price tag?
Well,
Whatever.
look, we can't have.
This is
look,
public comment.
This is public comment, and anything like that put before us, I imagine, would be quite a developed proposal, you know, I don't know that there's a price tag on it.
The answer to your question is reasonable.
So, thank you, Dave.
Don't mean to be coy,
No,
but
we
it
just
has to
keep
work
hearing-
for everybody.
We keep hearing this all the time, and we really haven't got down to the brass tacks of it. So.
Dave, really
Thanks,
appreciate it.
Dave.
Thank you.
Any other public comment in the room?
Hi, Marcy Bartlett and Wilder. Two things. One is a shout out of thanks to the PD. I was embroiled in budgeting at home, and that was exciting until the PD called me. And I wasn't expecting that. And they don't call a lot. But they were calling to let me know that they were moving around speed signs on Hartford Avenue. I'm thinking, I paused and he said, there's nothing wrong, you know. I just wanted to say that the fact that someone thought to take a moment and just call somebody who lives on that road, that was extraordinary. And in the world we live in, the little things are really the big things. And that sent a very strong message to me as a resident and someone on that road that being involved makes a difference. We had been involved prior to the original placement of where they are, and the sort of ownership of how they are moved and managed has moved from Public Works to the PD. So that was great. I want to say thank you to them. Number two has to do with the lanes up and down the hill on Hartford Ave, or on by the high school. I know it's a state road, not a town road, but am I to understand that we're having one lane going down and one lane coming up, and that's going to be permanent? Anybody have any info on that?
It's my understanding.
So,
It's my understanding. I did hear from the principal of the high school today who stopped in the office. And as I do with all other folks, reflected the fact that Sophia Schinzel is a spokesperson for VTrans, and we try to serve as a conduit, at least for comments and concerns and complaints to AOT, because it is their highway.
Any ideas on why they've reduced it from 2 to 1? I envisioned traffic jams and
They've issued a number of answers to questions, and I could ask Sophia to share that collected bunch of answers to people who have expressed concerns with you, if you'd like.
I mean, that's fine. I would hope that that would be made more public than just that, but
Yeah,
I think they get put on the listserv, right? Didn't her response to?
there was something posted on the listserv, but without real discussion or explanation, I guess.
Mhm.
I see those white dotted lines and think something permanent's coming, so. Yeah, thanks.
Benny?
Yeah, the explanation that I saw was that they were putting as a request to people that were looking for bike lanes, they put in the bike lanes, and according to the new regulations for bike lanes, they have to have a 4-foot division between the bike lane and a traffic lane, which in this instance cut down the availability for a traffic lane to only 1 lane of traffic going up and down the hill. That's the new regulations that were in place, initiated a decrease from 2 to 1 based on the fact that they put the bike lanes in.
Any more public comment in the room? Seeing none, anyone on Zoom?
One hand up.
Okay.
Okay, Marie, you could go ahead and unmute.
Hi, good evening, Marie Alvin, White River. As far as those bike lanes, I got a few comments and questions here. You know, it's interesting, kind of doesn't make any sense. You give them 4 feet from the bike on the way up the hill and down the hill. But once they're on top of Hartford Avenue or crossing the bridge, they're back to the same old double lane. Anyway, one question was, I was wondering if I think it's Lanny who's the liaison for the planning. I'm wondering what's happening with the Brookside building. Does anybody know off the top of their head?
I believe they've been given more time to perform a traffic study. So that's that hearing is going to be continued to another date. Lori is nodding.
And another thing on the calendar, you know, I was looking at another town's calendar the other night, and the calendar for the month came up. And then every day that there was a select board, planning board, homeless committee meeting, it was right there on the day of the week, the day of the month, and the time for anybody to just click on and get the information. Seemed like an excellent idea to me. As far as the surveys go, I'm sorry I missed that. I was out of town. I really think it's important to look at the answers by village. And I also think it's important to look by age. And I also think it's important to do where the surveys came from. Were they online or were they paper copies? I really think we're missing a lot here. And maybe is there a way to, I mean, I'm more than happy to go around and hand deliver some of these because I know a lot of people just don't have the internet. And you're missing that. As far as the park and ride goes up here on Hartford Avenue, a lot of activities been going on. A couple of you are already aware. I've been good communication going on with John, and I thank him every day for his communication. He's doing an excellent job. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And I did want one more thing, the committee and media person, what exactly, I'm kind of confused by that. Is that person just working with the town manager and HR? Is it for employees? Is it for town residents? How is that going to work?
Briefly, I can tell you that JD Hawks reports to the town manager and to the HR director, but does not work exclusively for us by any means. In fact, this week, which is his first week, he's being introduced to all the department heads, visiting them on site, talking with them about what their needs are. And he's also assessing what he thinks he might be able to help them accomplish in outreach to make their communications more, I won't say uniform, but more coherent and cohesive under the umbrella of the town of Hartford. And so that's one of many things that JD is going to be focusing on going forward.
Okay, so that's more, it's more of an inner house thing for communication within all of you guys.
Yes, to tell the story of Hartford, hopefully some of the good news, and also to maybe be more of a presence than we have been on social media, for example, and participate in the discussion and clarify points that are raised in those discussions.
Yeah. Okay, wonderful. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Marie. Anyone else on Zoom? Kim?
No other hands up at the moment.
Okay, well, we will end public comment. Thank you, everyone. And move to select board comments and announcements. Kim, do you want to kick this off? Do you have a minute?
Sure. I just like to encourage people to read the significant activity reports again. It gives highlights from all the departments about the tons of great work that they're doing. And also just a reminder that a state primary election is to be held on Tuesday, August 13th at our Hartford polling places, Hartford High School from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And there's information about absentee voting, et cetera, on the town clerk's page of the town website.
Thanks, Kim. Brandon, anything?
Maybe just a personal announcement. My partner and I got a dog this past week, and she's very sweet. Her name is Maisie, and we got her from a rescue called Brown Dog Farm. And just very thankful to our landlords who did not try to take us to court for having a dog because we have the proper paperwork.
Thank you, Brandon. Mary?
Just a shout out, as all of you know, who may read newspapers, to our fire department and all the other departments that responded to the fire recently on Sykes and Lily Pond Road. And that I'm just amazed at how fast they got there and was able to save everybody, including four-legged critters. So.
Thanks, Mary.
No, just to echo Kim, that I'm looking forward to voting in the primary election. That's this coming Tuesday, a week from today, and I'll be helping at the polls, as many of us will be for the morning shift. So hope to see many people there. And also just to add to Kim, in terms of the resources on the website, there is a sample ballot on the town website. If you want to check out the sample ballot and know what to expect when you get to the polls.
Okay, thank you. Sue?
Thank you.
Manny, anything?
No, I got nothing.
I don't have anything, so we will move on to, well, no appointments this week, so town managers report.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll keep it brief. I'd like to point out that Clay Odell has been hired as the town's first community nurse, and he will be reporting to the fire chief. He'll begin work in September, so stay tuned for more rollout information. John Hawks, J.D. Hawks, began work yesterday as our communications and media specialist. I met with Katie Sutton, the Hartford School District's interim superintendent, on July 25th, and hopefully we've established a good working relationship going forward. A friendly reminder to all that property taxes are due on August 16th. The town manager will be having 2 wisdom teeth taken out Thursday and Friday, so don't be looking for me. I will be unavailable and inarticulate, even more so than usual. A few highlights from these SIGACs, and I do agree with Kim that they all bear close reading because so many good things are happening and there's so much information to be gleaned from reading them. For example, in the Hartford Police Department, Officer Peter Maziars has completed his field training program and received his Going Solo Award. Lieutenant Howell from Criminal Investigation Division led a new selection process to identify a new detective. Officer Hernandez has been chosen and will be transferred to the Criminal Investigations Division. Town clerk, of course, is very much occupied with the upcoming primary election, August 13th, 7 to 7 at the high school gym. The assessor reports that the state of Vermont has reviewed our processes and our plans going forward for our reappraisal and has endorsed their acceptability. They, in the assessor's office, has sent documents to RC Brayshaw, which is a mail service company for printing and mailing data mailers to every property owner in town. So the property owners are asked to verify the data we have on their property, and it provides the property owner the opportunity to schedule an appointment for an interior inspection of the property. So if you see a piece of mail, that might very well be it. Department of Public Works reports that they're planning to come here on August 20th to present the Sanborn Head feasibility study regarding the transfer station. They're doing some internal review of that now. Highway Division, of course, would like to welcome Keith Bailey as its newest employee as a Highway 1 operator. The Department of Planning and Development points out that yes, in fact, the Brookside Nursing Home Housing proposal was continued to September, so the applicant could submit a traffic study. As to a telecommunications tower on Bliss Road, the folks in planning have reviewed and drafted a memo regarding private sector plan to replace the tower, which the Planning Commission will review in September. And the Select Board will also have an opportunity to review that in September. In the Finance Department, of course, and you'll hear from Gail tonight, has reported in their SIGACs that the fiscal year 2024 closeout and audit preparation is taking more and more of their time these days. Thank you.
Any questions for John? Lenny?
John, I saw on, I know I don't put a lot of stock in it, but I saw on Facebook that there was a press release put out by the police department about a drug interdiction activity on Horseshoe Ave in Wilder. We didn't see anything of that come across our emails. Is there any truth to that, or?
There was a significant police involvement on Horseshoe Ave. I don't know that I've seen a press release. I saw a press release from fire with regard to Lily Pond,
Right.
but I can certainly ask the chief, and if there is such a thing, I'd be happy to pass it on.
Yeah, like I say, I saw it on Facebook and I don't find it the most reliable, so I figured I would ask you. I don't like seeing stuff like that on Facebook instead of hearing it from you personally, so.
Appreciate it. I'll look into it.
Thank you.
Any questions for John? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think based on Lenny's previous request about the boil water notices and stuff, like, is it not standard practice to just include select board on press releases in general?
I don't know what the practice has been. We can make it a practice. Certainly seems to me that if the fire chief or the police chief thinks something's important enough to put into a press release that the board might have access to it. Maybe they've been showing me a courtesy of allowing me to forward it since I have the direct relationship with you.
Okay. I mean, either way, I do.
I think I have learned my lesson though with respect to boil water ordinance or notices that whenever I hear about one, I forward them along.
Yeah.
And I can undertake as a pledge that every time I see a police chief or a fire chief press release or notice of important activity, I'd be always inclined to send it along to the select board.
I guess it bothers me to see something on Facebook.
Yeah.
That I should be hearing about from.
I can understand that, and I hadn't heard it. I hadn't seen a press release either, so I'll look into it.
Yeah. Please.
Can I just finish too?
Kim and then Mary.
And then the other thing is just regarding Marie's request for the calendar. I know that the communications person probably has a very long list to begin with, but there is that feature on the homepage of the website that just needs to be populated. And honestly, if you needed a volunteer to help with that, I would volunteer my time. But if that could be on the long list of theirs, I think that would be appreciated. And when do you think is there already scheduled when we'll have a year-end financial update for the?
October.
Oh, okay.
I'll be coming to see you probably next meeting or the meeting after to do the encumbrances, but until everything is officially closed and ready to be presented to the auditors. I don't like presenting preliminary.
Yep.
So
Okay.
I'm gonna have to come back and ask for forgiveness.
Thank you very much.
No forgiveness
Yeah, I
needed.
have a question for John or anyone. Maybe I just don't understand the process, but the pump that failed, I saw the report, it goes to the state. Do they alert towns downriver?
They report to the public.
Okay,
So we notify the state, and the state is proud that they promptly post notices of unwanted discharges so that the public can see them and perhaps inquire further or just be aware
okay,
that there has been a discharge. This is a particular electrical issue at a particular site that has happened twice now in the last month or so.
Yeah.
And so I've asked Brian, let's not look at symptoms, but see if there's an underlying cause to it. And who knows, maybe we ought to look generators or backup batteries so we can avoid that happening again.
But
So he's looking at
It
that.
sounded like alarm didn't go off because
That's
of the lack of a fuse.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
Okay, I just didn't know how the process worked. Thank you.
Lanny?
I just had it on the tip of my, I just had it on the tip of my tongue. I just had it on the tip of my tongue what I was gonna ask, and now I can't. I can't remember what. Sorry, I'll get with you offline. Sorry. I just had it too.
Anything else for John? Okay, thanks very much, John. Yep. Our next item is in the board reports, motions and ordinances. We're gonna get an ARPA funds update, and then in our packet, there were a couple proposals to reallocate some of the other funds. So Gail, if you want to come up, and you submitted a very nice memo. Walk us through it, I suppose.
All right, good evening, everybody. I'm Gail Ostrad, I'm the finance director, for those of you who don't know me. We're here tonight to do an overview only. The board's not going to be making any decisions. This is information only. And I kind of went all the way down into the weeds because I do know that we have some new board members that weren't here when the original obligations were put in place. So that's why it's kind of a lot more information than you probably will get on a regular basis, but as we're making these decisions. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the amount of funding that the town has received. How much has the board approved for projects? What projects have been expedited in accordance with the US Treasury? Because we have a different in town when we say that we're committed to doing a project, you don't necessarily have to have multiple steps, but with the US Treasury in these particular dollars, they have specific things that we need to do. And if we don't complete them before December 31st of this year, we're going to have to give money back. So right now we have a 200,000 or so we'll talk about, but we also have multiple projects that aren't at that stage of being obligated, which could bring us up to $1.1 million that we need to come up with something quickly on. So that's kind of the timeline of what we're working on. We're going to talk about, again, the funding first, what projects were originally approved by the board, what status they're in, whether they're completed, they're in process, are they considered to be obligated according to US Treasury? And then we're going to close it up with, I have 3 new recommendations from staff on projects that they're requesting money for. And again, I'm not asking for you to make a decision tonight. I'm hopeful that we'll come back on the 20th. And if any of the 3 projects that I'm going to present to you this evening, if you're interested in them, you'll be able to reach out to the town manager, ask for additional questions, and then each one of those representatives for those departments will be available at the 20th meeting for you to finalize any questions. You're not obligated to make a decision on the 20th. You may want to hold out longer, but the drop dead date is October 1st. And I know you're probably thinking that gives us, a couple more months before December 31st. It's a lot of work that goes into them. And I want to make sure that each of you have time to make the decision that's going to be best for the entire town. So that's kind of where we're at.
Just a clarification. You gave 2 dates. I remember the 12/31 from reading it, but the first date is just that we have to decide on it, but we have to actually have people in line contracts by the 31st. Is that?
That's correct.
Okay, great.
The best case scenario is that when we do our final board meeting in November or the first board meeting in December, and that's pushing it, that you as a board are approving contracts for those projects to move forward. You as a board is signing off on purchase and sale contracts. So it's good. It seems as though we have a lot of time, but we really don't. And it's going to go fast. And especially if we're going to execute some of the bigger projects, I think we all know that can be held up quite easily.
Before we get too much into this, I read over this a little bit, and you've listed this restricted funds and unrestricted funds. And you say that unrestricted funds are interest earned on awards funds are not subject to program restrictions.
Correct.
However, with that being said, if we do not use all of the funds that we were given, we've been earning interest on all those funds. Are we still keeping all that interest, even though we wouldn't maybe be using it all? We're still obligated to the interest. So we can make all this money off interest and still lose the original.
Let's not lose
Okay.
any.
What's that?
And then Gail, just so the items in here for like the nursing pod and the vehicle, that's informational essentially.
These are informational. And then I have one more, a new project that, actually two more from Parks and Recreation. Scott Hauser has been out, and so I hadn't been able to chat with him, and he was in yesterday briefly. And I knew that he had a couple things that he was interested in, so I'm going to present them this evening as well. Is everybody up, feeling good about the overview of it? Okay. Feel free to interrupt me anytime, just because I do understand it's a lot of information. So to date, we've received $2.8,057,210.59 in ARPA dollars, American Rescue Plan dollars. Those are restricted dollars that we only can execute based on what the Treasury gives us for guidelines to do so. On that funding, we have accrued, $76,770.80 as of June 30th, 2024. That is considered to be unrestricted dollars. However, when I came forward a while ago, I think I presented to each of you that it's really important that you as a board make a decision on what we do with that money as well, because it's interest being earned on that restricted funding, which you as a board is responsible to approve those projects for it. So even though it's unrestricted, according to the Treasury, I think it's great that the board is involved in helping make that decision.
So even if that unrestricted money doesn't get spent, we don't have to earmark the unrestricted, do we?
The unrestricted, you don't.
Okay.
Not by 12/31/24. I'm encouraging you to do so.
Okay.
But you're not required to.
I just want to make sure that
Okay. So in the board packet, on page 3, I did put another page in there showing you is it page 3? Yeah. The miscellaneous, and it talks about the interest and how it's not restricted. And then moving on to page 4, this talks about what an obligation is. And as you can see, it's a little bit more in depth than what we do on a regular basis. Normally, when the board gives their approval, depending on what the value of it is, we can move forward. And even if the year pass or if a timeline passes, the board's given their approval, and we don't have to worry about losing that money. So if you look through it, it does talk about the board needs to give their approval, and then the project itself has to have a purchase and sale, has to have a contract, and make sure that that's all in place prior to December 31st, 2024. They originally came out and was asking for all of us to have everything done before April 1st of this year, which is crazy and not reasonable to do, but I do know that a lot of communities have done it, but given the number of projects that we had, this is where we're at. What isn't an obligation? An obligation that is not an obligation is a resolution by the board. Claiming funds under the revenue loss category, moving the funds to the general fund and not having any documentation that goes along with it. So we want to make sure that we're following all of this. This is really important definition as we move forward, because we have 4 projects right now that are not considered to be obligated. So that means by October 1st, those 4 projects need to be sitting in front of you as a board and you're to be signing a contract or a purchase and sale. And if not, that's going to be a hard decision for you as a board that you're going to need to make, that you need to reallocate those funds. You cannot wait any longer. The staff members that are involved with those 4 projects are aware of it. John and I met with them last week and let them know that this is the drop dead. And I'm hopeful that they will be able to do it.
Yes, thank you. Does that mean that you would recommend to the board that we have a certain percentage over this budgeted in case something doesn't work out? 20% over, 15%, or so that we don't lose out on any money in case one of them falls through, basically.
We're going to keep coming to you with recommendations of different projects. It's also your responsibility as a board, as I mentioned back in April, to be reaching out to the community. Are there ideas? Are there things that the community members would like to see happen? I know that the block party didn't end up happening this year, which worked really well in the past for you as board members to communicate with, the community. So the town manager and I will keep coming and bringing recommendations to you from the staff level. However, the community side and what you as a board want to see happen, that's on all of you and making sure that you're having those conversations. Does that make sense?
Yes. And to be clear, we already have projects totaling what?
We're going to get there.
Okay, very good. Thanks.
Anybody else? Okay. So if you go to page 5, this is going to talk about the actual expenditures versus the approved projects that we have. You'll see at the top, all of them that have been completed start at, excuse me. Just lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. So the first one is the Bugby capital assessment. The original project that was approved by the board was $80,000. The actual amount that has been expended is $27,000 on that contract. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more, but I'm just giving you an example of where we're going to have some variances that we know that funding is available now and we need to do something with it. The Fairview water line, that project is complete and that came in at $396,122 versus the $420,000 that was budgeted for it. The Queechee box culvert is complete. That was completed at the amount that was originally budgeted. The bridge assessment is underway, but I haven't seen, we haven't seen any actual expenditures for that. The Hartford water main partial replacement, which is Nut Lane and Latham Works. That one is one that we're struggling with. And as you can see, the original budget amount is $440,000. We've only spent $11,000 to date. We'll talk about that one a little bit more. The skid steer budgeted at $80,000, executed at $80,000. The 2 electric mowers budgeted at $72,000, executed at $72,000. The cruiser, 1 cruiser and the fit up to it, budgeted at $75,000, expended at $71,886. The camera system budgeted at $40,000, expended at $40,000. The virtual training for HPD, Hartford Police Department, budgeted at $56,368, executed at $56,368. The 2006 E1 fire engine refurbish, that is currently underway, and the amount that is listed here is, is the budgeted amount. We do have a quote amount, which is less than that, and we'll talk about that going forward. The solid waste assessment approved at $100,000 for the budget. Currently, they've spent $69,534 to date on that, and I believe that the Public Works Director is on the schedule coming up soon, John, to give an update on that project.
August 20th.
Okay. The Queechee West Hartford Bridge pedestrian, no, but
skip the parking meters.
Oh, sorry. Parking meters budgeted at $233,000 and nothing has been expended on that yet. Just talked about the solid waste, the Queechee West Hartford Bridge restriping, that's $8,500, no expenses yet on that. And then the final two are the municipal fire alarm for 61,161, the budget, and it was expended at 61,161. And then the final item is DPW highway equipment at 270,899. So none of that has been expended yet. Questions on what was approved by the board for a project versus what was expended?
Just so in your memo, under the discussion part, so that where it says the balance left to be obligated per the treasury definition is, so it's between 163,324 and 1.15 million, and that's like basically the difference between those amounts.
We're gonna get there. You're gonna see
Okay.
it on the next page. But it talks about what we have available right now, today. And then come October 1st, if these 4 projects that I just mentioned that we do not have contracts for, you're going to have $1.1 million that you need to make a decision on.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm giving you a range of right now, this is what you have, this is what you potentially have in October.
Thank you.
And because of the amount of it, you know, it's quite the range. So we need to get our brains going and thinking about what you want to do with it. Okay, so now we're gonna go to page 6, and this is kind of where I was going with completed projects, uncompleted projects, projects that are in progress, and what projects are considered to be not obligated, which means they don't have a contract and they don't have a purchase and sale. This is where we go from the 163,000 to go to 1.1 million. We talked about Bugby Capital assessment. The budget was 80,000. The contract that was signed with the vendor is 35,612. That tells us immediately we have 44,388 that's not obligated that we need to put into the pot to spend. Fairview Gates and the Queechee Box Culvert, those are completed. So therefore there is no dollars there. The next thing is the bridge maintenance. The budgeted amount is 50,000. The contract that was signed was 35,750. That gives us another $14,250. That is not obligated. The Hartford water main partial replacement, we only have one contract, and that is for the engineering, and the total contract for that is 35,969.12. So the balance between that and what was budgeted, there's a lot of money. That is a project, again, that will need to come in front of you. They need to have a contract in front of you on October 1st to execute. And if they don't have one, the decision needs to be made to reallocate it to a different project. There is not enough time to not do something.
Can I interrupt you for a second? You have, I'm sure, you have projects that are in the works that you can see us reallocating these funds to, correct?
We have a few projects that we certainly can be, we could put them in this place. However, if you have current projects that are already in place that have sufficient funding, why limit the town and not take on new infrastructure projects or do other upgrades that are needed? I understand about switching the money out, but I don't want to put projects back on the shelf that we finally have taken off the shelf.
I don't disagree with you. I just don't see, I just wonder about the timeline of getting, if you have things that are already implemented, we could save that, you know, put the ARPA funds into it and use that money that we were going to spend towards those other projects down the road.
Certainly could give you some recommendations, but again, this is you as a board that have to have those hard conversations, but you also need to have the great conversations with the community and ask them what it is that they need. Is it infrastructure? Is it many different things? Do they want a new playground? Do they want a new park? Do they want a different sidewalk? Do they want this bridge fixed? I mean, that's something I can come to you all day long with lots and lots of things that I want money for and that staff, you know, could use the money for, but let's take this opportunity to really find out what the community needs. Because everybody has a wish list. We know that.
So can I ask probably a ridiculous question, but having not been through this, how does that happen? We are supposed to be setting this up because this is the first I'm hearing that we're supposed to be doing this. So how do we make that happen? Because we should not be sitting here talking about it in August if this is supposed to be October 1st.
It was supposed to be part of our community listening sessions that we have.
Do we have that set?
We've had public sessions about ARPA before.
No, I'm sure you have, but I'm saying right now, this is coming up now, 6 weeks? Am I right? 7 weeks maybe?
What, until, sorry.
What's October 1st? We're supposed to be deciding whether the money's staying in projects, coming out for new projects.
That's correct. And that was my recommendation when I came to you in April, was for you to start having these discussions and reaching out to the community.
Okay.
So
And the community is watching us right now.
Well, I'm not gonna, I don't mince words. So if this is what we're not doing, I want to make sure it's on the record and that we start figuring out how to do it.
absolutely. And I think that each of you can make your decision on how you want to reach out to your community. I mean, I can't
Nope.
tell you how to do it, but if you have,
We wouldn't let.
if you have people that, maybe you have a contact list on your email, or you want to post something on Vital Communities and say, please reach out to me. I'm a select board member, this is what you potentially have money at, like.
But one of the outcomes of our discussions last week with a couple of department heads is that they each have plans to develop enough information to commit those funds, to obligate those funds in time. What we're really talking about is what if that doesn't happen? And is there time to generate enough information to have an idea about a replacement project or two? And so the sooner that other ideas emerge, the better.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming. Most of these projects have been approved by the board since January of 2023. And we're now coming down to the last few months, and we need to do something.
Yeah, we've been kicking parking meters down the road here.
Well, we're going to have an opportunity to talk about parking meters in a little bit. So let's not be overly negative. We're all trying here. So then the next few items, the skid steer mowers, the two mowers, the one cruiser, public safety camera system, and the police training system. We already talked about that. So the next thing is the E1 refurbishment of the fire engine. The budgeted amount was $388,838. The estimate, which we can only use is considered to be a contract, is $340,087. So that gives us $48,751 there that needs to be reallocated. Parking meters, there's no contract on that yet. The solid waste assessment, the contract was for $87,500. The budgeted amount was $100,000. So there's $12,500 available there. And then the Queechee West Hartford Bridge restriping project, $8,500 budgeted. There's no contract in place yet for that. The municipal fire alarm was completed at full. And then we have the highway equipment that we don't have anything yet for. So those are the four projects. The Hartford water main, partial replacement, parking meters, the restriping of the Queechee West Hartford Bridge, and highway equipment. Those are the four things that we're focusing on. If you look at it as though we're going to get a contract for everything, and everything that we've budgeted is going to happen, it still gives you $163,324 of restricted dollars that you need to obligate before 12/31. That also gives you currently you have $76,770 in interest that is unrestricted. So as of today, you have $240,094.85 that I would like for you to consider approving projects for.
Okay.
So is this, I'm just trying to reconcile, which is when I first read it. So the column that currently is 119,889.
That's a variance of difference between what was budgeted and what we actually have contracts for or a purchase and sale for.
Understand, and I understand that, like, these numbers are still going to change a little bit going forward, but is, like, was that when I was looking for what the amount was to 1.15 million, I was like, oh, it must be that amount, but they're different amounts. Is it just?
No, if you were to add in the 4 projects that we have that have not been completed, and then also, second here, because I didn't bring my laptop and I have all the numbers together there, but you would be adding back in the 440, the 233, the 270, the 85, and then you have the 240 down here. So that
Oh,
gives
that's
you
where the 1.1.
correct, and that
Okay.
brings you up to the 1.1 million.
Got you. Okay, sorry, I think you just very much helped me out. And when we were originally allocating projects, I thought that the interest amount was included in the amounts that we had allocated.
Yep, it wasn't.
Okay. Because
That's why it was always at the top is what we were awarded, and then it worked down from there.
Okay, because I think there was a discussion in which we thought we had an extra $70,000, and then we're told, no, that was part of what we had already allocated. But I'm right. Okay, thank you. I think I'm up to speed again.
Okay. Questions on any
I'll
of
be
those?
calling you, Kim, tomorrow. You can help me get there. I feel like I'm halfway there.
Yeah.
Questions for?
Well, I'm in the office tomorrow, so you can always stop by and see me
That's
too.
probably a
So
better resource.
up to you. Any other question?
I do have a question.
Danny has a question.
So can we obligate these funds and taxpayer funds towards a project, or do these have to be solely used all by themselves for a
No, you
project?
can, you're saying like I have a project that has multi-funding sources,
Right.
multiple funding sources, that's perfectly fine. If
Okay.
you have a project that's going to cost $500,000 and you know that you have 250,000 from the general fund and you want to use 250,000 from ARPA, as long as your total contract is at least $250,000 and specifically talks about, ARPA, then you're perfectly fine. Or you can have a contract for $500,000 and say that only 250,000 of it is committed to that project.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
You have the flexibility to be creative as long as you stay within the lines when it comes to the US Treasury.
That's the lines that you know a lot more about than we do. So that's why the questions come about.
So I also provided to you an update on the projects that we have that it talks about the parking meters and the West Hartford Bridge pedestrian restriping, which Lori Hirschfield from the planning department is here and able to answer any questions for you regarding those 2 projects. Those 2 projects are not considered to be obligated, and Lori understands that she has until October 1st to get something in front of you.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions for Lori to have an opportunity to speak, or is the update that she provided that's in this presentation acceptable or works for you?
Questions for Lori?
As far as for the parking meters?
Lori has the parking meters and she has the West Hartford Bridge pedestrian striping.
What is the purpose behind the West Hartford Bridge pedestrian striping?
So there. The purpose of that is to create a safe and dedicated area for pedestrians. And there's a lot of traffic over that bridge, particularly because it is leads into the Appalachian Trail. And so there's a lot of traffic there, and just wanting to segregate that out. So the 2 travel lanes are being shifted. They can be narrowed, and then it's being shifted also over just a couple feet in terms of your breakdown lanes, striping lines, your fog lines, depending on what you call it. And then creating a path along the side, and then we're going to be putting a special type of treatment on it so that it's clear that it's designated as pedestrian as well. A little bit of signage as well. That's the objective.
Good questions for Lori?
Just are you confident that we can get these obligated by October 1st?
We've got a schedule that would do that.
What?
We have a schedule in place and
Okay.
we're in the process of putting out, I'm getting bids for the parking meters. As we currently speak, I'm working on that. And then we will be putting out a bid we have to go out for a special bid. We thought we could tack it on to the existing paving, because that's really what it is. It's just a paving, but it's a different type of material that would be used. And the regular contractors that we have doing it don't do that. So we have to put out a special bid on that.
Thanks.
So we're in process.
We ask about Bugby Senior Center. You?
No. The next one is does anybody else have any questions regarding the two projects?
No.
Those first two? The next one is the Bugby Senior Center, which the town manager is taking. So if you have questions regarding that, you need to ask.
We
him.
didn't use the full amount of money, right?
We did not.
Yes,
We did
even
the
when they finish their
feasibility
work, which is expected in the next, I would say 4 to 6 weeks. At most, they were talking now about 35,000, might be a little bit here and there, but about 35 of the 80.
So what, like, yeah.
That's why there's 44,000 variants that we mentioned in the last page.
So I'm confused about the way this is worded, John. It says, accepted proposals by vendor for architectural fees to complete the feasibility study. So it's not done yet?
No, for several months, there was no activity happening at all while the town engaged a surveyor to assess what exactly was the available footprint to work in. Then when we got the survey, there was some confusion as to whether the town actually owned the parcel of land that we all believed and felt strongly that we did own. And that took a little bit more research with V-Trans that finally identified points of conveyance. So yes, we're now satisfied that we do own the Bugby parcel and that there's sufficient space to do renovations to that and address the footprint of the parking lot as well. So for a long while, nothing could go forward.
So nothing's been done whatsoever on the building as far as retrofitting the building for?
No, there's been no
any kind of-
construction.
The report yet.
No.
Design first, and that's where they're now. There's a 3-phase design process. They've completed phase 1. They're already well through phase 2, and phase 3 is going to be relatively easy issuance of schematic drawings. And so they all understand at the Studio Nexus that we need to have this wrapped up pretty quickly so that we can report back final numbers to Gail's office.
So the final funds that we're gonna owe Studio Nexus is that other 35?
No, the ARPA funds that you all had put aside for this study was $80,000.
Right.
Their
Yeah.
bid turned out to be something like $27,000. Over time, we decided that there would be some additional money put into that to bring it up to about 35,000.
That includes
That
what's
still
been
leaves you with
done-
45.
That includes what's been done to date?
Yes.
As well as the phase 1,
As well
2,
as
and
to
3.
finish off the project.
Okay, all right, now I understand.
Sure.
Just there's a hand up online when you're ready from a member of the public.
Okay, we can hear from a member of the public.
Okay, go ahead, Marie.
Thank you, Marie Elvin, White River. I was just wondering about the parking lot up there. Is that included in the additions? I'm not even sure what's happening with the Bugby, but I know it needs a lot of help, and when I was there, the parking lot was all full and all couple of potholes over on the side there by the house, and hopefully that is included, or maybe some of that money can be included to have that done at the same time.
They're looking at the parking as part of the study, and they've recently been put in touch by the Bugby leadership with their own consultant who speaks to especially accessibility and handicapped access to include parking lots. And so that's the information that they're now folding into their existing scope. And that's what will be factored in, among other things, as they finish their work. But no, this money is not intended to do construction work. We need to see the feasibility study and then assess, along with the folks in the Bugby leadership, what kinds of money we need to put into rehabilitate the facility to kind of realize what the recommendations of the feasibility study are. And then, of course, begins the search for the funds to do so.
Right, but the 26,000 is just for the building itself.
Yeah, the 35,000 is a feasibility study for the building and its entire footprint, which does include the parking lot. So parking will be addressed in the study, I believe.
Okay, I was just, okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, Marie.
All right, the next project is the fire engine refurbishment. I didn't ask Chief Cooney to be here this evening because his project is is obligated according to the US Treasury, and he has no reason to believe that we won't be on track with it.
Okay.
And then the final 4 projects that we have are the solid waste facility study, feasibility study. And I believe, as the town manager said, we'll be having a presentation from that contractor coming very soon, and Public Works. Brian Gazda, Director of Public Works, is online. So as we move through these, if you have questions, please feel free to ask. The Hartford water main partial replacement. This is that big one, and we need to have a contract in place on October 1st. The bridge assessment, the inspections were completed the week of July 15th. I haven't heard or seen anything on them, and haven't seen a bill for the work that was done yet. And then the last item is the highway equipment, which Brian's confident that they'll be able to get some pricing and have it underway before the 31st.
Whether they in fact are able to purchase 2 vehicles or just one, as vehicle prices have increased dramatically since funds were originally allocated. But Brian, of course, is here online to answer any specific questions.
Manny?
What bridge is this that we're looking at, the assessment? Is it all?
It's all of them, yeah.
So it's just basically a comprehensive assessment of all bridges in town?
Yes.
Okay, and then was it just pickups that we're looking for highway, or was it heavy equipment?
Brian, maybe you can answer the question as to what kind of highway equipment you're looking at for your ARPA funding.
See presenter.
Brian, you can unmute. There you go.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Lanny, it's a 6-wheeler. It's actually a 26,000 gross vehicle. So it's considered a non-CDL, but it will be a 6-wheel with a dump body with a straight plow and a side plow. We have one, and I just say we have a contract ready. I just was waiting for tonight for $201,000 for this vehicle to use up 200 of the $70,000. Then I'll work with Gail. Well, we can get another truck and we should be able to get the other $70,000 spent for the equipment. No problem.
So, okay, so did you at one point in time want to get a 10-wheeler instead, and then had to downgrade the funds, or was that?
Nope. This was to replace actually a Chevy 1-ton. And we're just getting away from the Chevys just due to mechanical issues we've been having with them, Lenny. So this is a Freightliner. So we're getting a little bit more robust truck. But this is a same vehicle that we bought last year, but last year with the price and inflation of stuff, with trade-in, we only paid $150. Now we're at $200,000 just due to cost increased.
And this is with a plow and a sander?
It's not going to have the sander, but it's going to have the front plow and the side plow. So, I mean, the truck will be configured to sand. Yes. So.
Okay, that's my.
Yep.
Brian, you don't have the bill yet for the bridge assessment, I guess.
Stantec is Bill Billis. They've done the work. We just haven't seen an invoice yet, but we have a contract with them, so I don't think it should be an issue. It's just getting the money obligated by 2026, but they're wrapping it up, and I'm sure once they get their bill, and this is a small project for them, so I wouldn't be surprised they just don't lump sum bill us at the very end.
Okay, so there is a contract, so that is obligated?
There is a contract with Stantec in the amount of
37.
30.
37.5.
It's 35,750
Okay.
is the contract that I have that was provided to me by Chris.
Okay, so that's when we do have, it is obligated, we just have extra excess.
We do,
Yeah,
correct,
okay.
the 14,250.
Gotcha,
And
thank you.
then I have one more question for DPW, I guess, is at some point in time, I know we talked about in the past, capital improvements for the DPW garage facility. Is that on the radar at some point down the line, Brian?
We know that we need to have a lot of the molding, the exterior molding needs to be placed really, and we're going to get that done. We have money in the budget for that. You have, Dana's been working on, with the energy assistance upgrade. That survey should be coming out. So there are some other major capital improvements to like HVA systems that we just don't have the data on it yet or the numbers to know what those what that would cost.
But we're nowhere near going to be outgrowing our DPW facility. That's basically what I'm looking for. I mean, are we still fine as far as size wise then?
Yeah, I don't see, foreseeable need to increase that facility, the garage facility, no. So.
Right. And then one last question for you, Brian, is what is the next major piece of highway equipment that we're looking at replacing?
Well, besides another truck, off the top of my head, I'm not thinking the grader's getting older, Lenny, but it works well. The sweeper is older. We just had to put some money into that, but that works well. And we're actually been trying to hang on to the less computerized equipment because it works better. As we're experiencing with these Chevy trucks, the more modern, the more gadgets and the more electronics they have with it, there's a lot more that can go wrong with them.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, they want to tell us about, if you're ready, about the 3 new projects.
Yes, 3 new projects. Actually, there's 4. Parks and Rec have 2, and then Human Resources has 1, and Police has 1. The Human Resources Department did put together a presentation for you. They're requesting anywhere from $8,148 to $15,500 to purchase a nursing pod for here in Town Hall. As they've indicated, under Vermont and federal law, the town as an employer must make a reasonable accommodation to provide an appropriate private space that is not in a bathroom from an employee who is a nursing mother. The HR director has done some research, provided a few different options here, and also included the Vermont statute as well as US Department of Labor fact sheet. And I would encourage you, if you have questions specifically about this project before the 20th, reach out to John, and John can be in communication with the HR director. The next item for a potential new project would be a criminal investigations division vehicle. The police chief has put together 2 options in here for 2 different types of vehicles. He's indicated the urgency of it, of having that vehicle for the detective. He gives a history on exactly how it happened and how we got in this situation. The budget currently that's in FY25 does not support getting a vehicle. At the time when we were doing this specific vehicle, when we were doing the budgeting for FY25, we didn't know that we were going to hire another K9 unit. So cycle of life and transition of expanding the police department. So again, if you have questions regarding the chief of police proposal that is here, reach out to the town manager with your questions, and the chief of police can be in touch with you. The Parks and Recreation, I'm gonna, John, if I can pass these to you, there's one for you, and then if you could pass them along.
Yes. You got yours there already.
Yep, there's one for you there. Scott Hausler, the Director of Parks and Recreation, has 2 requests that he would like to see funded. are taken into consideration. One is $60,000. You don't have paperwork on this one. $60,000 for the Maxfield grounds. There's a exceptional need to reestablish the gravel parking areas that are there, as well as putting new gravel for the pathways. And I believe that we've had a discussion over the past couple of years at least about the stormwater retention that's there at that facility. And some work needs to be done on that. So that's one of his projects. Scott will also be available on the 20th, but if you have questions before then, again, reach out. The second item that Parks and Recreation has is a vent track, and that's a piece of equipment that I just provided you the information on.
Yep.
This would replace a current mower that we have that is 8 years old. It's exceeded its life, and a part of the reason why it's exceeded its life is because of a lot of that stormwater that is over at Maxfield, which is very hard on equipment. So we need to get, it's kind of a double-edged sword. We need to get the stormwater retention under control, but we also need to have a piece of equipment that can manage the size of that area and the different types of terrain that are there. So whether it's brush hogging or doing the fine mowing that's there. So those are the 4 projects that we're putting forth right now that have come from staff. Not required.
20th, they'll be here.
They will all be here, but if you have questions in advance of that, I recommend, like I said.
Do we know anything about the cost of the gravel for Maxfield?
It's $60,000 for, and that's to reestablish the gravel in the parking area, gravel for the pathways, and work on the stormwater retention.
Is there any way we can knock one of these out tonight? Because
No, you cannot. It wasn't presented that way.
okay, so I do really think that we need to focus heavily on this cruiser because we're gonna run afoul of union contracts if we don't do that. So that has to be a top priority for us.
That's a concern, and we have the 20th, I think, at our next meeting that we can. So, sounds good. Kim?
Is that the kind of thing that, like I know, I feel like it's taken us a long time to actually acquire some vehicles for HPD, like, so if we have a quote and a contract, a sales agreement from an auto, whoever sells us the vehicle, okay, so even if, and we just have to make sure we get the vehicle by the end of 26.
This particular vehicle is not a marked cruiser. It is a detective vehicle, so it's not as in-depth and doesn't require those types of specifications as a marked cruiser or with all the additional fit up that goes along with it.
Not a police package vehicle, then you could just buy something like this open market.
I'm not qualified to make that decision. I just know that the specifications for a detective vehicle are much lower than what it is for a marked vehicle, the specifications.
But yeah, so your question, that answer is yes, to have a contract in place is sufficient. Yeah.
Thank you. I only mentioned this about the police cruiser because the new canine is a Belgian Malinois, and he's a big boy, I gather, named Atlas. So there. Unrelated. I'm only asking about whatever funding could be allocated, and have been under the impression that it can't be, because with public works, projects have to be, quote, shovel ready. And I don't know, I don't get it. I just pay my bills. Is there any way we can hold on to money for the Wilder water infrastructure, or keep that on our radar if you have to allocate, encumber, or otherwise snag money? I would be grateful. But taxes are going up, and I get that too.
I can certainly ask the DPW folks what and when they think they'll need and when they'll need it.
And if specifically, if monies can be protected towards that. I know we've done the engineering study. They're out in the community doing the surveying or whatever work that is they do. It's long-range planning that's been going on for a long range.
The key is obligation by December of this year.
Yeah.
Spending it by December of 2026. If those both can be accomplished, we can find that out.
That would be lovely. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcy. So it sounds like some of these items, these new proposals, we'll be discussing on the 20th. Ideally, it sounds like, ideally by the 1st, we have obligated some of these things, like we have a contract or something like that, so that we don't, some of these very large dollar amounts.
By October 1st.
October 1st, so hopefully that's how we go forward, and we can use, we'll use the funds as they're originally sort of earmarked. But we do need to be nimble in case some things can't be, ideally, we want to try and use as many of these dollars that we got from the feds as possible. Kim?
Another thing for our uniform communications person, but is there any way to maybe draft a statement or something relating to public input is welcome on the final designation of ARPA funds? And or it will be discussed at the August 20th meeting.
The key is to both let the public know that you value their input, but at the same time, not get their hopes so high that we have unlimited resources we're dealing with, because it's somewhere between
exactly
100,000 and a million. And
we don't
let's
really know
hope that
where
it's
we're ending
closer
up.
to the 100,000 and that the regular things we've already decided on can go forward.
Right.
So that's why I wouldn't want to ring the dinner bell too loudly. That's all.
Yeah, but I mean, if people are interested, they should know it's an opportunity to share with us, because even like the Wilder Water, like I wasn't even certain that engineering had been, like that engineering, that project is potentially something that could be.
Well, we're using enterprise funds now to get that work done. I
Okay,
believe.
great. So yes,
But
obviously it's already hard,
whether
and I
some
realize,
construction could be funded by ARPA under certain
but probably
circumstances.
not in time.
That's something to research.
Yeah.
Gail, would, and I don't know if there's any interest in this, would fully funding a full-time community nurse?
It's a bird salaries. Because then you just have to keep funding. Sorry.
I don't know who's answering.
It's gotta be like a project. It can't be salaries, right?
I think it's tough. I think it's tough to hire an employee and have them funded by these type of funds, because
they
disappear and then it goes back on the
Okay,
taxpayer.
that makes
So-
sense. That makes sense. I understand.
But let's keep in mind, all of the great ideas we have can still be put in a pile
For the
because the budget
unrestricted.
season is just about to begin, if you could believe it.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Just a quick thought about suggestion for language in terms of being open but managing expectations, just, we could say like there's 100,000 or at least 100,000 could be available. And if you have input on some definition of what ARPA can be used for,
Reach your
to
select board member or town manager.
reach out to us and or come to the 20th, August 20th meeting.
So I'm missing something. I got 15.5 for nursing pod, 43.5 for PD, 70 for Parks and Rec. What's the fourth one?
60,000 for a Maxfield.
The gravel.
The gap, yes, correct. The gravel and the stormwater retention. I think the only other thing that the town manager and I could offer is, as things develop with planning and with public works regarding their 4 projects that they have, if we're getting to beginning of September and they know that they're just not, they have no movement whatsoever, then the town manager will need to come to you at that meeting, at the earliest meeting that we have any indication that one of those projects is failing or not going to be able to happen. then we can let you know and then assign the dollar figure to that.
Ideally, yeah, we get everything contracted and going.
Yeah, so my last recommendation is your October 1st meeting. I would make it exceptionally light unless it's stuff that you have to have done, because again, you're gonna have all of these, at least 4 contracts that we're hopeful you're gonna be signing for these projects. And then if you have other money that we need to obligate it as well too, so.
So,
Suggestion. Lanny?
Quick Excel total comes up with $189,000 for these 4 projects. We're still looking at, well, we got 2.8 million to spend.
No, you don't have 2.8 million to spend.
I mean, we do, but we've allocated most of it.
Correct.
So that. Okay.
As of today,
Going back to page.
number 6. As of today, you have $240,094 that you can spend and that's going on the assumption that those 4 projects are going to be fully executed or obligated on or before October 1st.
Okay, and so my number was using high dollar numbers too. So that still leaves us a difference though. So
Yeah, there were.
of $51,000. So we got to still spend $51,000 somewhere. Okay.
I think we have a hand from the public.
You want to take it now? Go ahead, Marie.
Hi, thanks. I just wanted to, when you were thinking of putting info out to the public, that perhaps you could do a survey with a list of a few things and options for people to make suggestions, just like, kind of like the safety survey. Just thought of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie. All right, any more questions for Gail? This was great presentation.
Yeah,
everyone
I do have.
Brought back up to speed, and hopefully we get those contracts on the 1st of October. And so we don't have a giant pot of money we have to scramble, but also I think we can all reach out to people we know and think about what uses might be available. I remember when we first knew we were getting ARPA, we did some surveying at like the block party, and they still have that information, it wasn't all that long ago. So hopefully that'll help us. Hopefully we can be nimble and act quickly to make sure we get every last dollar.
Yes, Gail and I
we
feel the
deserve.
same way. We don't want to leave any dollar on the table.
Yeah.
Yeah, we won't be giving back 1 penny.
Right, there we go. All right, well, why don't we take a 5 or 10, and then we'll come back and finish up the rest of the agenda. It should go fairly quickly.
Oh, don't jinx it.
Shouldn't take.
A lot was
Good. All right, welcome back, everyone. We're back from our break. We're going to hear from Lori next. Amendments to the Hartford Business Revolving Loan Fund guidelines.
Right. So we actually have two different programs for revolving loan fund. They're separate but related. So a lot of the language is the same, but because they are two separate things, we needed two separate actions. So the first one really is the Hartford Business Revolving Loan Fund, which I think most of you are familiar with that. Its primary focus is economic development. And during the course of the year, the committee has been looking at different ways in which to promote it, and also how to one of the factors of that is the interest rate. A couple years ago, they did change it to 3.25%, or the Wall Street prime, whichever is higher, and that was, but it could go above that depending on risk or whatever factors and so forth. One of the things that they looked at in ways of getting the word out there more was some more clarity on how to go about explaining it, and also looking more specifically about is there a minimum administrative fee that we really do need to be recapturing, at least in the interest rate. So those are a couple of things that were looked at. With the interest rate going up as high as it is, wanting to make sure that there is a real clear ceiling on it. It's not going to go above that, because the overall objective of these funds are to help stimulate development. And a lot of times they are used as the upfront down payment or something for the property owners or the business owners' equity into a project, which typically when they're going for conventional financing, this is a complementary to that to help enable that equity from the private sector. So that all together, they decided it would be important to revisit this. They did take some valuations and conversations with what other communities are doing that do have revolving loan funds. There is one in Springfield area, and that was also lent itself to provide some guidance. So I know a question has come up that was raised about, well, you're going up a little bit above the floor to the 5%. What happens if prime really goes way down again? And the committee's response to that is, then we're going to revisit it. We'll bring it back to the board and say, is this a time for us to revisit that? There's also provisions within the regulations that say, and under special circumstances, a recommendation can be made from the committee to the select board when you're approving a loan to adjust even any part of that rate going below. So if, for example, when we had a COVID hit, we did grants out for businesses. When we had businesses that were impacted adversely from Tropical Storm Irene, we reduced the interest rate to 0 on many of those. So there's already flexibility built into the language as it stands today, that if there are particular things that you're trying to hit very specifically, and it's an important part from your purposes for that business to be able to get a reduced interest rate, then you have the flexibility to consider that already. So that's the overall what's being proposed here. So the difference then is if going into the next application, which is 5C, that is a different funding source. So there are other focal points of the project there. And so you'll see slight variations in the language. The way it was written up in terms of the guidelines was only a few years ago. So the sections are different and so forth, but the language is generally the same for the interest rate. There is one addition I want to make on there that did not get put into my draft, but was approved by the committee. And so I want to clarify that in the final sentence. Under special circumstances where a project would broadly stimulate economic development, we were adding into that new language, which would say, and housing. And those are, and so I'll read the entire phrase as it would stand today with the addition. Under special circumstances where a project will broadly stimulate economic development and housing activities in the town, the select board also may approve a reduction in the interest rate and or the terms of the loan. So, and again, housing is one of those elements or those activities that could be the VCDP loan money would be focused on, and it was highlighted in the guidelines, which are attached for both of them. So I would suggest, if you have any questions, I certainly can go through that with you. And then if you're at the point of wanting to take a motion, do it separately for each one of them.
And do you have any questions for Lori?
Just when I read under the revolving loan fund purpose, I see Hartford Business Revolving Loan Fund will be used primarily to provide loans that will assist town of Hartford businesses to create or retain employment in Hartford. How does that sway with housing?
Well, the one piece that I was looking at, are you talking about the VCDP one?
The purpose.
Or for Hartford Business Revolving Loan Fund? There's two different ones.
When I read right from the Town of Hartford Business Revolving Loan Fund guidelines.
Okay, so those guidelines are separate and they are focused on economic development. When I was speaking about the housing component, that is for the other revolving loan fund, which is what is called the Hartford 2020 VCDP Revolving Loan Fund. And that's item number 5C. Otherwise, they're very similar in ways, but because the VCDP comes from a different funding source, which does require allowances within that resource to accommodate projects that would be eligible normally under the state's Vermont Community Development Block Grant Program. And housing is one of those elements that is highlighted.
What does the VDCP stand for?
Vermont Community Development
Well,
Program.
Okay, that is the one that's geared towards housing, whereas the regular Hartford Business Revolving Loan Fund is geared towards employment.
Well, I would say the economic development one, which for the VCDP is economic development, housing, and any other activity that would be eligible, such as maybe handicap accessibility. But the primary focus on those are economic development and housing. Why it was added into that last sentence there would broadly stimulate economic development and housing activities is because right now housing is a priority within the town and the state. So that's why we emphasize that as an eligible activity for you as a select board to consider variations in the term of the loan as well as the interest rate.
How much is available for in this fund?
About $159,000 in that one.
Okay, between the two though, I mean.
And the other one is probably around 273, I think is the number right now.
Okay, so you not generally have more than one entity have a loan at a time then, correct?
Well, no, we do have more than that because in the most recent, a lot of them are no more than $50,000, but there was a larger one that was to Key Auto, and then they paid that back more recently. But it doesn't really go often above the 50,000. They've been trying to use it as a way to leverage funding, but it doesn't need to be exclusively the Hartford Business Revolving Loan Fund. And some loans have never, even were asking for that much. So, but there aren't a lot of individuals that are using the dollars right now. And the people they're getting back on board with a lot of stuff, I think, from COVID.
Yep.
Do you suggest that the motion, like we don't have a recommended motion, but it's to approve just the interest rate change? Like, do we need to approve revised? I mean, we only have that draft language about the interest rate. So we're not approving revised guidelines, only the interest rate change.
It's just an amendment. It's an amendment that would be for the interest rate. So it would be for section. It's for the section. So it would be making changes to section B5 types of loans.
Wait, section, which section?
So in Hartford Business Revolving Loan Fund, it would be section B5, types of loans.
B as in boy?
B as in boy, it's in the second, it's in the discussion section there. And for the VCDP loan, it would be section F2, types of loans. And then the actual language of that is what's written below that paragraph.
If there aren't more questions, I can take a stab at a motion.
Good
Well, there is
questions?
one for the VCDP.
There's a motion for that one.
Well, it's a recommendation.
Right, but it's
Isn't that enough?
just approving the interest rate. So I
Right.
was just
Wait a
asking.
minute. Okay, I have a question. Sue, are you part of this? Are you? the
You
liaison
could
for
change it to just change
this? Did you
section
attend this meeting?
B5,
to reflect-
types of loans for the Hartford Business Revolving Loan Fund as proposed. You know, and then for the VCDP one, you can just
Are you on
do the
board?
same and reference section F2, types of loans as proposed by the Hartford Business Revolving Loan Fund.
Any other questions for Lori? I do admit the language sounds a little strange. It says it shall not exceed the prime interest rate, nor shall it be less than 5%. What if the prime interest rate's under 5%?
Right, and that was the question. And the response I got back from the committee was if it does fall below that, then they would consider coming back to you
Okay.
to reevaluate that bottom.
Okay.
And my recollection is that was a very painful, long drawn out, very thorough conversation we all had. So I think we got where we needed to be in the end. Yeah, I don't think any stones were left unturned.
Any more questions for Lori? If not, you can take a motion on this one, and after that, I'll be on the next item.
Kim's got it worked out.
I'll give it a try.
Kim?
Read what is straight off of this, I think. I don't think there's any variables.
I would say approve the changes to could I, do you want me to do that? Okay.
No, Mr. Chair, I move that the select board approve amendments to sections B5 of the Hartford Business Revolving Loan Fund Guidelines as proposed. Period. Yeah.
A second.
I'll second.
A second from Lanny. Any discussion? Yeah, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, great.
All right, Mr. Chair.
So if we got that one, that's the Hartford one. Now we got the same language essentially for the VCDP.
You ready?
Yep.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I move that the select board approved amendments to section F2 of the Vermont Community Development Program guidelines as proposed.
Second.
We have a second from Lanny. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Our next item, I think you're still with us, Lori, is acceptance of a grant for the South Main Street TIF and project improvements.
Okay, all right. And this is a very quick one. It's related to the recently completed improvements at the South Main, North Main, and Gate Street improvements downtown. This is a TIF project that went into 2 phases. And there were multiple funding sources for this. It was the Clean Water Revolving Loan Fund, and that's a state by the Department of Environmental Conservation, as well as TIF dollars, as well as also drinking water from the same agency, the state. What was made available to the town was what we're calling it's actually a sewer rehabilitation grant that is made available to the town. At the time that the town made application for the loan, this was something that we were earmarked for, but there wasn't funding within that available funding at that time, but additional funding did come through. So the grant was processed and put forth as an award to the town. So what is now before you is the acceptance of that grant award.
Okay, questions for Laura? Take a motion.
Make a motion,
Okay.
make a motion that the town accept the grant for $62,558 and direct the town manager to take all necessary steps to execute said grant agreement and apply it towards RFI 291.3.0 CWSRF loan balance.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. Aya, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Thank you, Lori.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Our
You always
next
like to
item
have money
is-
come to you,
Yes.
right? That's always an easy thing to accept.
All right, our next item is doing the necessary sort of resolutions, et cetera, to get the Fairview Terrace reconstruction project on the ballot as a bond. So I'll turn to you, John. You submitted the
Yes,
memo.
thanks to Lisa O'Neill, our clerk, for nudging me along. She has longer time frames sometimes than I do, and she knew that coming up would be the election, and we better get on the process of developing ballot language so she can order the ballots, and that takes some lead time. So I then spoke with Eli Emerson, our bond counsel, and he provided the documents that you have before you on this table, which will need to be adopted and signed by the select board members. This is all by way of following up on the select board decision months ago that they wished to move forward and engage an engineer who has, of course, developed cost estimates for the project. And that amounts to $4,100,000 project, which we anticipate putting before the voters on their ballot in November in the general election. Of course, before that time, there would be public hearings as required by statute, but we need to have signatures on documents tonight.
Okay, questions for John about this?
So,
Yeah,
John, if this gets approved by the voters, you have a dollar amount that we're looking at for tax increase?
I don't, but I have on my list here, one of the things to be done is to talk with Vermont Bond Bank and get a schedule of payments and what they would look like over time.
And when would those first payments start taking place at, do you
If
know?
fire district number 2 is any indication, there might be a principal payment the first year after approval, and then thereafter principal and interest together. And we can talk about different payoff schedules, anything from, I think, 20 to 30 years.
So obviously,
amortization.
so nothing would take place in this tax year at all.
No, but we can certainly, again, get this information from the Vermont Bank and talk about putting it into the budget for debt service going forward.
Okay, because we just had taxpayers get hit pretty heavy with taxes and
Understood.
hate to, spring this on right away about another major increase in taxes.
Understood. I will get more clarity from the Vermont Bond Bank about timing.
Okay, so just by moving forward, this doesn't mean at all that we're accepting the money and start paying on it.
And the outcome
Yes,
is, of
we
course,
approve.
uncertain.
Yeah.
It'll all depend on what kind of a presentation the town and the leadership makes.
Okay.
Jim?
Two questions. One is, since we are asking a town question on the back of the national ballot, would it make sense to ask the voters, like, again, if they might want to use local option tax to do the park improvements or any other questions, because there's likely to be a very big voter turnout. I mean, it would require, we're gonna have to do public hearings for this bond anyway, so there could be some opportunities for public engagement on any other topic.
Your gaze should be redirected to your colleagues.
Thank you. Thank you.
We had a strategic planning session, didn't we? When's that?
It's September 22nd.
Because it may be that's something for all of us to get together and think about. Do we want to try and put back the local option tax again? Do we
want to try.
And if so, when?
Yeah, and do we want to try and, put the park back up as use of LOT funds?
I mean, I think there was a lot of, because of lack of communication, I think there was a lack of understanding about how that project would be funded. Like, I think people thought it was, their property taxes were going toward that, and it wasn't. So I don't think it would hurt to ask them again. I know a lot of towns in Vermont, anyway, or even the sales, having the local option retail sales tax again. Like, I think it takes a couple tries in some towns to do that. So if it's not too late to get something warned for a November ballot, if we.
Well, that would be a good question for Lisa. Obviously, she felt that we needed to finalize the bond issuance ballot in order for her to order them. The same concern might exist with regard to a separate standalone item for the ballot.
If we could find that out from her, that might be helpful.
Yeah, because I do think, like, it is, because it is likely that the voter turnout at the November election is going to be greater than the March election. I mean, I don't think waiting till March is okay, but if we can get the opinion of more voters on something like this, or something like anything, I mean, anything we can put on that, but with the understanding. So anyway, I guess that is a consideration that I'd love us to think about before it's too late. And then the other thing is, I know this is like a little nitpicky, but in the resolution, it basically says, like, it's resolving that this project is necessary. And I guess I'm curious if that means, let's see if I can find it for us.
I think it's a term of art.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was a necessity resolution for the fire station #2.
Okay.
And you might argue philosophically about whether that's necessary because we've lived without it. But I think it's a determination by the board that you wish to move forward with it.
I mean, I was wondering if it had to do like the $4.1 million is necessary for this project to be completed, or that if it was okay. So if it's just part of the standard language, I believe it is boilerplate. Okay.
Either way, we made the decision on both.
No, we didn't, because we're putting it to the voters. Like, if the voters approve the bond, then the project will get done. If they don't, it will not, or something else will.
But the board's made the decision.
The board after the vote with the.
Right, the board.
I don't know if, I think the
But
bond.
the board's made the decision
the
to
bond-
take it to the voters. That's what
Yeah.
I'm getting at.
But if the voters might say no, and if the voters say no to a bond question, I don't think we can override that.
No,
So.
no, but.
Then the question is, what's plan B?
Right.
Yeah,
But we have made the decision to take it to the voters. That's what
Yeah.
I'm getting at.
I agree. Good.
We'll need a motion to do that.
To do, what are we talking about?
I'd like to make a motion on this one.
I'd be happy to.
Put this before the voters. Thanks, Kim.
Mr. Chair, I move that the select board approve and sign the attached bond vote related documents generated by bond counsel in support of bringing the proposed project to the voters in the November 2024 general election.
Thank you, Kim. Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Second from Mary. Any discussion?
I just want to say, I'm so glad to see this getting to this point. We've been talking about Fairview and Gate Street for many years, so
Agreed.
I think this is progress, and I really appreciate Lisa also like keeping us on track.
Yes.
Great. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Our final item before we do this, the housekeeping stuff is, Kim, I think you had a little more info on the listing session and strategic planning session.
Yeah, and I'll email. I'm talking this week, tomorrow, and then the week after next with the facilitators, just about the format and the agenda and stuff for the September 10th listening session, which will be at the Wilder Library with, we have permission for parking at the Wilder School. So if there's anyone that needs additional parking beyond street parking. So that will be at 6 o'clock on September 10th. And if anyone has any input or suggestions about anything that you'd like incorporated or want to, make recommendations about the format or anything, let me know. Otherwise, the facilitator and I will just kind of hash that out.
I can send you my primitive draft agenda. and
Great.
You can make it your own.
Thank you, that would be great. And then September 22nd, I believe it's 12 to 6 p.m. Is the strategic planning retreat of sorts, which will also be facilitated at the West Hartford Library. Sue, yeah, you look like
I've lost track of where the first one is. I'm trying to get.
Wilder Library.
Thanks.
And I will, once I talk with the facility, I just wanted to kind of reconfirm the dates and ask if anyone does have input that they want incorporated into the planning of the actual sessions, to please share it with me, or we can discuss now if anyone has ideas.
Will you send those dates out to us in an email, please?
I have, and I will again, yes. Yeah. And it actually is in the last meeting's agenda, the July 23rd agenda.
Not been confirmed, I guess.
Yep, happy, yeah, I will I think what I'll do is once maybe what I'll do is, tomorrow I have the meeting about the listening session, which is coming up sooner. And so I'll send out that summary with also like a request to get town staff to help start promoting it, because the listening session, we would really love a lot of public engagement if we can get it.
Do you know who's facilitating?
Yep, it's going to be Anita and Melinda from Prism Solutions.
Okay.
And then I think that
I have that. I was trying to remember what Prism Solutions was.
yes,
Okay, great.
And then it's also Prism Solutions for the strategic planning, but I think it's either Greg and Anita or Greg and Melinda for that.
Okay.
Yeah. Worked with both of them.
And are you coordinating with JM, I assume, for the listening session?
Yep, and yeah, we're working, got all the logistics kind of going forth with those guys. The West Hartford Library's internet, the Wi-Fi is fine, but cell service is not great. Just FYI, particularly with iPhones.
Okay.
That's for the training.
That's been strategic planning, yeah.
Voice over internet.
Huh?
Voice over internet. Use your phone for voice over internet.
Okay.
But also, sorry, is the strategic planning session, is that, or it has to be open to the public?
Yep, it is open to the public, but I think it will be just like less promoted. It won't be interactive with the public, but the public will be able to certainly observe. Right now.
Thanks very much, Kim, for all your good work on this.
Some resolve those issues by having them way out of town.
Not intentional.
All right, commission reports. Kim, do you have anything?
I do not.
Brandon, do you have anything?
No.
Mary?
No.
Ida?
No.
Sue?
The only thing I had was the revolving loan fund, and I think we talked that through well enough.
Okay, Lanny, anything?
No.
I have nothing. Okay, consent agenda. I will take a motion. Anyone?
I did make a couple minor modifications to the minutes, which include that the listening session dates in the ones posted were wrong. Not to confuse it even more.
Okay, anyone want to make a motion on the consent agenda?
Well, if you got them, you mean changes to the consent agenda dates?
The minutes said the listening session was September 9th, but it's actually September 10th.
Okay.
We made that change.
But
The
the
change has
consent
been
agenda
made.
here is still good.
For the dates of the AP and stuff, yes.
Oh, yeah, we should add the listening session and strategic plans
That's,
to
I
future
think
meetings.
I'm getting it. Yes.
Okay. You want to do it or you want me to? do it?
No, they don't have them. You have them. So.
There,
that's why I'm
okay, why don't I
asking.
go ahead then?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Why I'm asking, yeah.
I appreciate it. Mr. Chair, I move that the select board approve payroll ending August 3rd, 2024. Approve the AP manifests of August 2nd and August 8th, 2024. And approve the meeting minutes of July 23rd, 2024. As well as future meetings of August 20, 2024, September 3rd, adding September 10th listening session, September 17th, 2024, and adding September 22nd for strategic plan.
Okay, we have a second.
I'll second the motion.
Second for Mary. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, and I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
we have a second?
I'll second.
At eight.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thanks, everybody.
I just want you to look at your agenda and the time set for adjournment.
For what? I
know.
Way to go, John.